In a move to address what he calls wokery in the NHS, Health Secretary Steve Barclay has announced plans to ban transgender women from being treated in female hospital wards in England. These proposals, part of a broader consultation on changes to the NHS constitution, aim to prioritize women's rights and will also include provisions for same sex intimate care requests. Additionally, sex specific language will be reinstated in health advice pages. While the government argues this is necessary for privacy, dignity, and safety, critics, including the LGBT charity Stonewall, claim it's a cynical move that may restrict healthcare access for trans women, making it humiliating and dangerous. This announcement comes after earlier discussions about banning trans women from female-only spaces, stirring debate about gender and sex definitions in law and policy. This story is from Sky News and was published October 3rd, 2023. Blatant, what do you think?
I think the fact that any adult who says wokery in a non-ironic way and is still taken seriously is incredible. But I did want to highlight something that he said, like maybe, let's go to the panel, maybe I'm tripping. Because he said, just to quote, we need common sense approach to sex inequality issues in the NHS. I'm from America. I don't know what the NHS is, but I'll continue.
It stands for National Health Service. It's the UK's universal socialised medical system that was set up in 1947. I think it was 1947 by the then socialist Labour government that kicked out the Conservative government of Winston Churchill in the 1945 general election.
You know these things off the top of your head, but yeah, I wouldn't know about it because universal healthcare, way over my head.
Hey, I said the dirtiest words. I said the dirtiest words to the American. Yeah,
universal
socialized medicine.
Social
sounds terrible. Sounds terrible.
It sounds horrible. Free
saved my life. It saved my life. I tell you, as a trans woman, it saved my life when I had sepsis. It saved my life.
A bit. All right. So, second half of what he said after NHS. That is why today I am announcing proposals for clearer rights for patients. Now, the first thing that hits me in that phrase when he says common sense, and we all know that people that usually use common sense don't possess that commodity. So the common sense, like, again, I don't know about the UK, but me being from St. Louis, when we say common sense, we mean stuff that anybody can understand. So I feel like treating every human being with equal respect and compassion would be common sense. But again, I'm from St. Louis.
He said wokery. He can't have common sense.
You see, she gets it. She gets it. Nobody that says wokery has common sense. But anyway, the second thing that he said, and really the main thing that got me, was the statement when he says the last three words, rights for patients. If your priority is ensuring the best outcome for and maintaining the rights of patients, this never becomes an issue because the patient will come first, meaning you meet them where they are and how they come to you. And I think we're going to get to the point in human history where anti-wokery, I'm coining that right now, anti-wokery will just make about any form of mistreatment is excusable, I should say, as long as it's being done to the others. The lesson that will eventually be taught to everyone involved in this is one day you're going to be the others, because once you take rights from one group, that gives you license to continue chipping away at every group. So good luck to everybody that's in the in crowd right now that's cheering this on. You're next.
Is that me?
I was saying what Jimmy has to say about
it. Yeah, I thought that was spot on. The rights for patients thing, it doesn't make any sense coming from this guy, because in this speech that he gives, he starts off ensuring that rights for patients is his stance, offering healthcare to patients with multiple choices of healthcare providers, enabling clinicians to develop new technology to improve patient care, give them more choice, more control over their care. And that seems kind of the opposite, choice and control when you're being eliminated, ostracized from healthcare, is exactly the opposite of these rights for patient positions that he's trying to take. He wants to help organizations run more efficiently when you focus on outcomes and not the inputs. And at that point of the speech, he takes a turn where we kind of really uncover what his angle is and starts talking about taxpayer dollars. It pivots from being patient-centered and becomes a plea to appeal to a conservative base, if you will. So he doesn't want to spend taxpayer dollars on diversity and inclusion, which is quite ironic to me, I think, because how does that lead to the protection of women's rights? And is there some kind of outcry, Phoebe? I don't know. Is there something going on in the UK that the rest of us don't know about, where biological females are having some kind of outcry versus trans women who want to be in the same hospital facilities? I don't think so.
Well, first of all, I just put you back on your turn there. Biological anything. Anyone who says biological male, biological female, etc., is unfortunately buying into their nonsense. And it's buying into the transphobic push that somehow I'm not the same as another woman. And this is where it has become a complete load of nonsense, because I know of somebody who did freedom of information requests, so FOIA requests, to NHS hospitals up and down England, NHS trusts up and down England, and they asked, how many complaints have you had about trans people in your trust, specifically about trans people in your ward, etc., etc.? The answer was none.
Exactly. So what is this guy talking about? What does this guy talk about as far as needing to protect women's rights by banning trans women from the same healthcare facilities as all other women? I don't know where this outcry is coming, or where this need to respond to this made up kind of this made up effect that's happening. So yeah, I think those are my initial thoughts. Putting patients first is not at all what he represents when you come out with policies like these.
It reminds me of World Swimming. World Swimming recently decided it'd be a great idea to ban trans women from female events. So they then had this great idea in Budapest in Hungary, well known for being trans inclusive, to have open categories for trans people to compete. How many people do you think entered these races? Panel, go on, give us a number. Go on, throw some numbers at me.
How many athletes were in these games?
Oh, hundreds of athletes. World Athletics Championships.
I'm gonna say one. One is gonna be my guess.
Blatant, what's your number? Then Aaron, what's your number?
1/2.
We have a winner. You win $1,000 on the spot, and it is coming at you from The Price is Right. Blatant, you are absolutely correct. So they then had to just scrap it entirely. Nobody entered. So they wrote this policy about how horrible it was that, trans women were all over the place. Guess what? They were creating an issue that didn't exist. Mm-hmm. It's just absolutely mad. I mean, it's Florida with a British accent. It's discrimination at an English tea party. It's hate with a hypodermic needle. Never in my life have I seen so many passed over for so few. Never before have I seen so many qualifications abandoned for those with none. It's America under Project 2025, just without the Christianity. And what's absolutely worse about all of this is it's being pushed by a wide range of religious loons. You have a fundamentalist Hindu who is the Prime Minister of England. You have a lunatic Buddhist who is the Home Secretary. And you have Stephen Barclay himself, a Catholic who loves to shout that he's not a Catholic. And then we have Lucy Fraser, who is the Levelling Up Secretary, who is a wonderful hate-filled Jew. And then we have the wonders that are the Minister for Equality, Kemi Badenoch, who says that I'm a man. And she shouts, Catholicism first, trans people go to the trash. I mean, we've got to the point where we are in this lunatic fringe of a world where we have these religious smorgasbords in the British cabinet, all spouting the same hate. It doesn't seem to matter whether you're a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Catholic, or a Jew. In Sunak's government, hate at trans people is for you. So, Aaron, you started this. What have you got to say?
Yeah, it's really hard not to see it as just hate and trying to I guess, as Jimmy said, appeal to their base because there's just no reason for this. There's no, this is not a problem that people are that needs to be solved. And so why would they be doing this? I don't understand it because it doesn't. Yeah, I just understand it, and it's really interesting. You went through a bunch of the leaders over there in the UK, and it seems really weird that you would appoint somebody with no medical experience to run the health and social care department in the Department of Health. Yeah, in the UK, that just seems really backwards to me.
It's like appointing the chief of staff of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from the civilian ranks.
Yeah, it's so weird, but it doesn't end there. Over there in the UK, guess what? The head of the Department for Energy Security Net Zero, no experience in that area. They just studied maths and philosophy and were in finance. Treasury, anybody with any chance that there's any finance experience? Nope. The person running Treasury has 3 failed businesses and then became a career politician. The Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but before you move off of it, I like that. When I say I mean this translates perfectly. But Dr. Ben Carson being put in charge of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Yeah. Well, you lived under public housing, so you must be in charge of the whole damn system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've studied medicine your whole life, but that just doesn't seem right to us. Yeah. And then next, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office.
That's the equivalent of the Secretary of State.
Yeah, Secretary of State. A sales manager who became a career politician. Really qualified there. Home Office. A lawyer who a lawyer.
That's the lunatic Buddhist. That's the lunatic Buddhist.
But they usually have some basis in law. So I guess they have one person that's qualified. I mean, I could go on if you look at their.
But I'll stop you here. I'll stop you here because we'll stop on Suella Braverman for a second. So Suella Braverman caused a change in UK law. She got pregnant, and the UK had no provision for cabinet members to go on maternity or paternity leave. And at the time, she was Attorney General, so she was a qualified barrister, and she was the chief legal officer. So what happened was they passed a piece of legislation that had gender-neutral language in it that said, yes, if you get pregnant, etc., you can go on maternity leave until it got to the House of Lords, where some lunatic members of the House of Lords inserted gendered definitions into what it meant to be a mother and a father. So what they then did was they legally recognized trans men who are pregnant as mothers and trans women who donate sperm for the purposes of conception as fathers. So rather than them, creating these nonsensical definitions, they themselves pushed this rubbish. And it is absolute nonsense that they did this and they don't realize how stupid they become at the end of it. And that was the Attorney General's flagship piece of legislation to say, yes, she could go off on it. But now if a trans man goes off and gets pregnant, trans man gets maternity leave. Whereas under the original, which they were like, you can't have that. But now, fine. Okay, there's your 6 months off and there's your 6 months that you can share and, And trans women, yeah, you can have your 2 weeks paternity leave in the UK. I understand these concepts of leave after you've had a child are foreign to an American audience, but they do happen in Europe and they do happen in the United Kingdom. But yes, who here on this panel has heard of Samuel Mudd?
I have not.
No.
And who here on this panel has heard of John Wilkes Booth?
I haven't heard of him.
John Wilkes.
Does anybody know what happened to John Wilkes Booth when he jumped out of the box at Forbes Theatre?
He spoke some Latin and broke his ankle.
Correct. He broke his ankle. He found a doctor, Samuel Mudd. And Samuel Mudd had no choice but to set the leg. He had no choice. John Wilkes Booth had just murdered the President of the United States and he had no choice but to set the leg. How many doctors do you think are going to be a Samuel Mudd? And how many doctors do you think are going to be a Stephen Barclay? Just how many do you think are going to be there?
Well, I know here in the United States, with overturning of Roe v. Wade, Idaho has really, really strict anti-abortion laws. So strict that doctors that are there, they're moving. They're leaving Idaho because they can't. They're afraid to practice medicine for fear of what's going to happen. And when you pass laws like these restrictive laws, you're just gonna drive the good people away, and they're gonna go do something else because they don't want to deal with the headaches. They don't want to deal with the politics. There shouldn't be politics in medical care.
Yeah. Jimmy, I see you wanting to come on.
Yeah. So, well, I everybody's got to get their points in, and now is my time. So this leads me to the idea that legislation such as this or policies like this could be actually really dangerous and not only humiliating but dangerous to transgender women, transgender people in general. Putting them in a position where there's not somebody to give them adequate care, or maybe that they are, now the target in an us versus them kind of ideological characterization. We see that a lot in American politics, and this kind of thing is what pushes that agenda. And so not only are they more dangerous in that sense, but the women that they're talking about helping are really not any better off either. I mean, if you're trying to solve a problem, you can't just point at this group of people and say, well, these are the problem, and make up something and then not actually address the problem. So multiple sources that I've looked at when trying to figure out what the hell is this guy talking about, it points to that actual discrepancies that take place for women in the UK healthcare system take place in prenatal and maternity care. And there's nobody that's, really going to hinder them. There are no transgender people that are hindering women who are pregnant or getting prenatal care from receiving adequate care, receiving safe health care. And so
there's no epidemic of trans men taking up all of the spaces for cisgendered women.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And, the problems that exist for women in the UK healthcare system, from what I was able to ascertain, is that there is a great level of misogyny in the UK system that is specific to the biological needs of male patients and kind of pushes female patients to the side. So anyway, that's kind of what I came across, and I found nothing to corroborate this asinine idea that this guy is putting forward.
So here's a question for the three of you. The UK had a census in 2021, and they asked a question about, are you trans or not? How many people do you think answered that question, yes?
Out of all the entire population, or
England and Wales. So England and Wales has a population at the last count of 57 million.
I'm going to say 15%.
15%? Aaron?
I think homosexuality is 5 to 10%. I think transgender is probably less than that. So probably, let's say 5% of 57 million, 5.7 million, 2.5 million people.
Okay. Blatant, what's your number?
Public math.
I'm going to go between 2 and 3%.
262,000, or 0.5% of the population, or half the population of Wyoming. If every trans person in England and Wales coalesced together and created a community, there would be fewer than half the people that are currently in the smallest state in America, in Wyoming. And Wyoming has 560,000 people living there. This is not an issue that is, going to destroy humanity, as people like to make out. People like to make out that, trans people everywhere, non-cis people everywhere. It's just...
Yes. It's quite the distraction. I think that's the only thing I can think of the reason they're doing this is it's distracting from solving real problems that these people that they don't want solved. The income inequality, poverty, systemic racism. These are problems that affect way more people, affect everybody's quality of lives, but nobody's solving those problems. They're preaching culture war BS instead of addressing what people really need.
So let's go around the horn. Aaron, have you ever complained about somebody else in a hospital ward when you were in there?
Just doctors.
Jimmy, have you ever complained about anyone when you were in hospital, another patient? You ever complained about another patient?
Nope.
Blatant, have you, in your time being in hospital, ever complained about another patient whilst you were in hospital?
Not once.
And nor have I. And if you want to see why, click here.